I want to thank David Hughes, who just submitted some rules questions on Beda Fomm, and we're going to go ahead and address the questions he had real quickly here with the screencast. His first two questions are regarding infiltration movement. And in this example, let's assume that David is the Italian player, and his first question is, can a infantry unit conduct infiltration movement through an armored or an enemy armored zone of control? So in this specific example, perhaps this Italian infantry battalion wants to move into hex 1926 as a form of infiltration movement. The answer to that is no. The infantry unit is not allowed to conduct infiltration movement through the enemy armored zone of control. That's covered in the movement rules. You'll note that for infantry or personnel units, they can only enter an enemy zone of control if they are either stacked and moving with friendly armor, or there is already friendly armor in that hex. So let's see an example of that. So in this case, we've got an armor unit that happens to be stacked with the infantry unit. So let's assume in this case, David wants to move and do infiltration movement. Will that be possible? The answer again is no, because this armor unit is not underlined, meaning it has no infiltration movement capability, so it therefore cannot move along with the infantry unit into hex 1926, so that will not work. So let's take another example. Let's assume we've got an Italian enemy, a friendly Italian armor unit from Babini located in this target hex, which is where we want to conduct infiltration movement to. Yes, in this case, the infiltration movement would be successful. The Italian unit can simply move and advance. Again, it's following and honoring the rules that an infantry unit can advance into an enemy armored zone of control as long as there's a friendly armor unit already in that destination hex. So this is one example of how such a move would be possible. The next question David had was, must an infiltrating unit stop in the first enemy zone of control it enters? Yes, that's absolutely correct again. It must stop per the basic zone of control rules. Basically, once you enter an enemy zone of control, you're frozen, that's it. The only exception is if you start movement in an enemy zone of control, you can move out of it, move somewhere else. Let's do a quick example here. You can move out of an enemy zone of control and then later enter an enemy zone of control again. But what you cannot do is move from an enemy zone of control through infiltration and then again to another hex. That is not allowed. It is basically a one hex movement allowance for infiltration, one and done, and that's it. So let's move on to the next question that David had. And this question is in regards to mandatory combat, meaning regular combat phase. And this question is, can a unit in a single hex attack more than one adjacent enemy occupied hex? So in this case, we've got the 10th Bersaglieri motorcycle battalion, and it wants to basically engage the Comforce infantry company that's closest to the coastal area. So we want to do an attack just going into this one hex. Well, guess what? According to the mandatory combat requirements, if this unit is declaring an attack here, the Italian player is also compelled to attack all other adjacent enemy stacks of units next to its attacking stack. So this is an attacking stack right here. That means the combat force units in the remaining two hexes that I'm highlighting here, these two units must also be attacked. So that means this attack will be conducted at odds of 5 to 6 instead of, say, 5 to 2 or 2 to 1, because you cannot ignore these other hexes. But let's take a look at some deviations of what might be possible. If Colpani was brought into play and did an artillery barrage earlier in the Italian turn, this would, and let's say it did an attack in this area here because we want to attack the coastline. If we did an attack over here, which would be at long range, the Italian player does not have to attack this hex any longer because it's already been subject to an artillery barrage. Furthermore, if there's any armor type unit in a defending hex, you can never attack a hex containing enemy armor during the regular combat phase. It is not allowed. So that means if we declare this attack now against the lone combat force infantry company, we no longer are compelled to attack this infantry company because we've already engaged in an artillery attack against this hex, so we are forgiven from that mandatory attack. We can skip it. And we simply aren't allowed to attack any defending hex containing enemy armor, so this hex can never be attacked during the regular combat phase. That now leaves it wide open for this Italian unit to attack at 2-to-1 odds for regular combat. I want to thank David for submitting his questions, and I hope others have found this information helpful as well. Thanks for listening.